Welcome to the Dracneck and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Dracneck and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Dracneck at Dracneck and Friends.
Hey there.
Today, we're joined by Gwen Frey, who you may know from her work on Kine and Lab Rat, among many other games in the industry before that. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. Do you want to talk a bit about yourself and your career and who you are and what you do?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for a really long time now. I forget how long, 15 years or more, I guess. I started out in AAA. Specifically, I started out going out to California and I was working on a bunch of online MMO style games out there. I actually worked for a couple of big names at one point, John Romero and Dave Brevik, who was the president of Blizzard North. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth, was in these kind of very, very large productions out in California. After that, I think my big break, the thing that was really fun and that I'm kind of known for, was I moved to Boston and I worked on a game called BioShock Infinite. That was a really fun production. That was my first big AAA console title. And I learned a ton there and I had a great time. And I was I'm just kind of known for that, I guess, in the industry more than anything else, because it's obviously, I love puzzle games, but not many people play our games compared to play these big console titles, you know. So I really loved that, but after that, there was some industry turmoil. You know, BioShock Infinite shipped, it did well, but they didn't know what they wanted to do next, so they shut down that studio. And they started working on a new game with just a core team of I think we called them the 11 Cylons. So a couple of us got together and we founded our indie studio. The first indie studio I founded, which was the Molasses Flood. That was a team of 6. We launched a game called The Flame in the Flood. This was a survival roguelike game that was made pretty quickly. We kickstarted it after about 7 months of production. We launched it after about 2.5 years. It was initially a flop. It didn't do very well, but it gained steam over time, and it was a launch title on the Switch, which managed to keep that company going long enough for us to start up another project. And I wasn't really into the next project we were working on, so I kind of exited the company at that point, and they went on and they launched that, and they did I'm still really involved with the Molasses Flood. Well, that's a whole story, but I'm still friends with them. That was a huge experience, was making that company with that team. And after that, I decided to go solo. I basically left the Molasses Flood because I would start this kind of indie puzzle game. At the time, I'd fallen in love with these block pushing puzzle games. And I'd played some of Alan's work. And I thought, we were really struggling financially at the Molasses Flood. We were always a month from closing the company, and it was so stressful. And I just needed a break, and I was really enjoying just making these kind of block pushing puzzle games. And so I had this prototype for Kine, and I kind of exited the Molasses Flood, wound down my role there, and I started up Chump Squad, and I made a game called Kine. This was a launch title on something called Google Stadia, which doesn't exist anymore. And it was,
rest in peace.
Yeah, it was my first block pushing puzzle game, basically.
And for people who aren't aware of it, can you describe the game briefly?
Sure, yeah. I mean, this was a game that was mostly about moving around in 3D space. I was really excited about the idea of being a cube that moved in weird ways in 3D space. It was more about movement. It's hard to explain, but I liked some of the ideas I saw in your Discords and things like that. But I was a 3D artist by trade and an animator by trade. And I was really interested in is there a way to do a puzzle in 3D? And I don't think I really realized that, to be honest. But I was trying to find a way to make a 3D grid game, basically. I don't know how else to describe it. It's mostly a game where you can change the shape of your character and you kind of roll around as this big 3D shape. And your goal is to get to kind of a certain goal location. And at the time I was really, I had just seen a film called La La Land, and I was really into the music and the vibe that film was about. And I was just I really wanted to do something light and happy because I felt like I was always working on grimdark stuff. So Kine was meant to be this kind of happy, whimsical game about being these musical instruments that are moving around in 3D space. And I had a great time making it. It was really fun. Yeah, and then I made enough money off of that I could do another game. And so I'd met this really awesome puzzle designer, Lucas Laslow, in your Discord, Alan. And at the time, there was things I liked about Kine. I will admit I'm not the best puzzle designer. I didn't really want to make all the puzzles. I liked coming up with the ideas, but I really liked collaborating with Lucas. Lucas and I kind of collaborated on a jam, one jam together. And I liked the idea of like coming up with these and brainstorming mechanics and implementing it, programming it, and then like letting Lucas just go nuts and make cool puzzles. And so we decided to do that, and that's kind of where Lab Rat started. I think the very first, like, our jam game was actually about COVID and about trying not to get sick while you're moving around a grocery store. And it was really gross and like funny, but that was obviously not going to be a mass market product or anything like that. So we actually sat down and we kind of said, okay, if we're going to make a real game out of this, what do we make? And we were, how do I put it? We basically, at the time, there was this idea of like, okay, so you've got this shopping cart and your goal is to keep people away from you using this shopping cart, but sides of the shopping cart could get like, back then they were like, if you touch the side of a thing, it'll get infected. And there were elements of that and the mechanics there that we liked, but we didn't want that theme and we wanted to just start exploring in a different direction. And so we changed it to being like, all right, there's going to be some kind of cube and it's going to be able to get an electrical charge on one of four sides. And you got to, navigate around a space. And we kind of just slowly started with the mechanics and we tried to build a story around that. And from there, my job was kind of to come up with like a vibe and a feel to kind of make something that would mean more than, okay, you're pushing a cube around, right? Like I wanted to make a game that kind of captured a feeling, but I didn't really know what feeling I wanted. I started this right when COVID had begun. And so I wanted to like, I felt like we were all alone in front of monitors being really stressed out by our machines. And I kind of wanted to capture that feeling. So in a fucked up way, I guess it still is a bit about COVID, but I wanted to capture this feeling of just being like having to go through your day and do your job and, feeling like you're confined in this space and you're, climbing up the walls. And I tried to take that and coalesce that into Lab Rat, but I also like didn't want to be sad. So I wanted to make something funny. And I was honestly inspired by Portal, which I think is pretty obvious if you start playing the game. But I started to come up with the idea of like, okay, so you're going to be this character, this person, this tester who's in a facility, whose job it is to be stuck in these mazes like a lab rat, and you're supposed to try to figure out how to solve these puzzles while and maybe there is no other human to interact with. Maybe what you're interacting with is like some sort of artificial intelligence, something that's just these two monitors, this computer that's kind of just pushing you forward at all times. And can we make that absurd and amusing and fun? And that's kind of what Lab Rat is. And that's what I've been spending way too much time on over the years. And that's where we are now. That was way too long. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, one thing we haven't said yet, I guess, is that at the time this episode gets released, then Lab Rat will either be coming out imminently or will have just come out. So congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats, future you.
Congrats to that person. I can't wait to meet her. I want to beat her so bad. It's been too long.
You're so close. You're so close, Gwen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, because this episode seems like it's going to be mid-April.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So right when we launch, that'll be great. We'll be out on PC and Xbox. Please check it out.
Please do.
The puzzles are quite good. Lucas did a phenomenal job.
Puzzles are very good. The comedy is very good. And boy, it really goes places.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah, we lost our mind at some point there. This has really increased in scope, far beyond what it should have. But it's been a great time, man. I had a good time making it. I worked on it until I could not anymore because there was no more money.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what? So the scope of Lab Rat
uh,
much larger than the scope of Kine.
mm-hmm.
Obviously not the largest scope game you've worked on in your career. It doesn't have MMO elements, but can you walk me through your sort of the curve of your feelings about the scope? Like,
Mm-hmm.
were you always happy about the scope? Were you like afraid of the scope at some points?
Oh, frequently afraid of the scope. Frequently. Like oh man, I'm trying to think of an elegant way to put this. So we started out with I didn't want okay. I didn't want there to be more than say about 10 puzzles that explored any given mechanic. And I felt like there's just no way to have more than 10 puzzles that are interesting around just one idea. There's a certain kind of joy in discovering a new idea, a new kind of a thing. And I know there are puzzle games I play where the whole point is to fully explore the idea. But you get to a place where some of the, I miss that delight of like, oh, this is a new shiny thing. And I especially feel like if you want a more mass market game, you need to give people new shiny things a little more often. And I didn't feel like we had enough eureka moments to really push any given theme or puzzle idea more than say about 6 to 8 puzzles really. And so a lot of what we did was me breaking Lucas's heart by cutting down to about a third of what he made, like almost immediately. Every time he would make something, I'd cut 2/3. I'd be like, okay, these are the best ones. So what we ended up with was a very diverse bunch of ideas, and I had to wrap those in some kind of narrative wrapper. And then what would happen is I'd need a way to get from like one idea to another. And I'd come up with a narrative, but to tell that narrative, I would need more puzzles. But because I would need more puzzles, well, we would need to come up with a new idea for there. So then there'd be a new mechanic, a new thing that was added. I don't want to spoil too much, but like we would add a new thing that would help us bridge that gap. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're back at that place where we've added more scope. It's hard to explain, but it did just kind of grow and grow and grow. And I don't feel like we have an absurd number of puzzles. We're at like what, 120 or 130 or so? Like it's not insane. I think the scope increase was largely narrative and art driven. And I think that is, if it had just been Lucas and me, I think we probably would have shipped probably 2 years ago. I think it's a combination of really pursuing some of my other partners that I took on a little later really wanted to pursue excellence as far as like the humor goes and the art goes. And that did drag things out a little bit. Like I'll say, in all seriousness, Lucas did most of his work within like a year and then came back and did like another month each year since then, but maybe. But honestly, I think a lot of the work and the scope creep has definitely been in the narrative and in the art. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you're totally fine. I was, yeah, just like the relationship to the scope, because I think it's one thing for there to be a large team making a large scope game, but for there to be an incredibly small team that is working on a game that just organically balloons and balloons is
Yeah.
like,
Under norm
it's a different
yeah.
beast.
Under normal circumstances, like this would have been how do I put it? This could be considered a failure by a lot of different, if your goal was to like set out and make a production plan and execute that plan. We have failed that plan utterly. There's no question. But I mean, if you think about it as like I had the money and I was at a point in my life where like I started working on this game with Lucas and then I had a kid. And I had that kid during COVID and I didn't have childcare. And that meant I could only work on the game here or there and I had to take on some other partners. And those other partners had other ideas and I work with people that I want to have ideas, right? And so then things kind of start moving in different directions and the scope can kind of increase in that way. And because of the way the development has gone, and because like I keep getting pulled onto it and off of it again, and then I have to revisit it again like 6 months later. I mean, I've never off of the game fully, like for more than a couple days. But it is hard to make a game while you're watching a kid full time for those first couple years. And that did drag things out and simultaneously, weirdly enough, increased scope rather than reduced it. And so it makes sense to me how we got to here, but it is very difficult to explain to other people. Other than, yeah, scope creep happened in a big way, but it's fine. Like, it was just part of my life during this period.
And yeah, I mean, I think it allowed the game to lean into some of the weirder, less expected elements of itself. Like, I feel like even from the start, you wanted to make something that wasn't quite what it appeared at first glance. But like, is that accurate? Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, yes, definitely. It definitely did allow me to walk away, come back with completely different ideas, and then pursue them to their fullest. It let me break down the game into chunks, which it's hard to explain, but yes, it does let the game take some pretty big narrative and mechanical twists.
What do you think? I mean, obviously, like, other than glowing reviews and like champagne money, maybe enough money to buy a yacht, like, what are you hoping for from the launch? And by that, I mean, like, what are you most hopeful that players will connect with?
Oh man, I always want to make people laugh. I think it's a beautiful thing if you can make people laugh. And I think if people walk away from this and they're, and they had a good time and they remember the experience fondly, the way I remember Portal and Portal 2 fondly, like that would be beautiful. I'm not saying this is as good as Portal. I do want to manage expectations there. This is a very small team, but I just, that means so much more to me. You get a yacht, Syrenne, and like you got to maintain that yacht, and it seems like a lot.
No,
But
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't want to that kind of responsibility. The yacht responsibility isn't my style. But like, if I can go up to somebody at a show, and somebody recognizes the T-shirt and says, "Oh, that made me laugh so hard," that means everything, right? Like, I still love going to different shows like PAX and seeing people dressed up as Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite. I still have like an album of cosplayers and things like that. It means something when your work reaches people and when they remember it years later. To me, that's always the best.
So you're looking for Cube from Lab Rat cosplayers.
That would be yeah. Euler, I think, would have made an interesting cosplay. But
I was gonna say, where are all the kind cosplays?
oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about that. Yeah, the cube from Lab Rat. Maybe I do think the unnamed tester, would make a better outfit. Like the tactical gear from Lab Rat. The electric cube, I think, would be. I mean, I guess there are people that dress up as, what is it, a Doscalisk from the Doctor Who. I suppose a Dalek.
Dalek, yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, Alan, how come the British person on this call was not the one that came up with that name?
Because Darthalisk was so far from Dalek in my brain that's like, well, I guess this is some really, really obscure Doctor Who monster, like that I just don't recognize by name. No, okay, Dalek, okay.
Just wanted to call out the British person on this.
No, yeah.
I don't know why my mind went there, but yeah, like I guess the cube would be a fun cosplay.
Yes,
but yeah, I don't know. I think reaching people, having them remember your game years later, I think that's always the best.
I'd love to dig in more to what it was like working with Lucas. Like, I know you said it was like a lot of start and then more intermittently over the course, but like, he's a great puzzle designer. I'm curious, like, what kind of direction were you giving him?
Oh man, working with Lucas is honestly the highlight of all of this, and my the biggest shame is that this dragged on so long. I didn't get to work with him more. He is awesome. So why is Lucas so awesome? I guess it was a combination of, I would come up with an idea and I would show it to him and he would get very excited and he would do surprising things with what I gave him. So I would give him, like, I got him set up with the Unreal editor, and I would give him certain design elements to place, and he would break things, and he would come up with surprising ideas that would then spawn new mechanics and new ideas. And some of it was like figuring out bugs or figuring out how different things should interact, or once you've added a certain number of elements or puzzle ideas to something different, once you add enough interactions, then suddenly you get combinatoric reactions that I wouldn't expect. And I guess he just is a person that really wants to fully explore every single one of those. Another thing is we would brainstorm mechanics together. I think we just feeded on each other's energy a lot in a really good way too. He was always really eager. He was always really fast. He was always excited to explore different things. He wasn't that hurt when I said that, like, we can't do all these puzzles, or I'd cut a lot of the harder ones. I think the hardest thing about working with Lucas is that his work is phenomenal, but it does Sokoban puzzle games can get very challenging for the mass market. And I wanted a game that was challenging and interesting. But to me personally, a puzzle being difficult doesn't necessarily mean it's a great eureka moment or that it's particularly interesting. I think you can have a really interesting puzzle that isn't necessarily super difficult. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, there are interesting puzzles that have great eureka moments that are difficult. There's also interesting puzzles that have great eureka moments that are kind of don't have as many things to explore and therefore tend to be a little bit more approachable. And I do tend to pull Lucas more towards the second one, I think. And I think over time we both came to appreciate each other. Like, he definitely pushed the game a lot further as far as making sure we fully explore things and making sure that we explore the combination of every mechanic. At one point he actually made a spreadsheet of every mechanic in the game, like horizontally and vertically, and he made a check mark to make sure he'd fully explored every combination, which was pretty fun. And then I think he did it again with, like, what if we have 3 mechanics in each thing? But yeah, I could go on and on, but like, for the most part, working with Lucas in general was just the best. Because he has that skill set, that mentality to really just pursue exactly this. And he has been so focused on puzzle games for so long that it's almost like instinct to him.
Yeah, because we are working with Lucas on currently unannounced Dracneck game that we will be announcing probably within a month of this podcast coming out, and we'll be having him on the podcast, I'm sure. And yeah, just a very smart designer.
Very good at taking design ideas and then just quietly iterating and then presenting great twists.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, definitely. And he definitely got, it was more fun too when he started to just play. I'd be like, give me a puzzle that's in a fun shape. Give me a puzzle that's, instead of making something that necessarily has a eureka moment, do something that, captures this feeling. I want to feel like this puzzle is going to be different. This puzzle is going to be a maze where you have to get from the beginning to the end. And it's not about moving the block to the right place, and if you just give him a weird prompt like that, he will actually deeply enjoy exploring it. And it does tend to
pushing out of that comfort zone of just gonna make a good puzzle.
Yeah. And I think that's why we had so much fun working together. I hope he enjoyed working with me. I loved working with Lucas. He was great.
So once this podcast comes out and you're shipping, and let's say wait a month or so for bug reports and et cetera, if you listen to your soul, what does your soul want to do next? Do you want to, like, just take a long break? Do you want to do game jams? Do you immediately already have a bunch of ideas for the next project that you've been sitting on while finishing up Lab Rat?
Oh man, my mind is locked into like a silent scream right now because I'm pregnant with twins. And I've taken so long on this project partly because, like, I had a kid in the middle of it and I had to figure that out and buy a house and, everything. And during COVID. And so I was excited to have another kid. I was not expecting twins. So now I
Most people don't.
Yeah, so now I'm like, oh God, I've been waiting until the game launches to figure it all out. And once the game launches, I will have a month to figure it all out. Like, where do they
Oh my God, a month.
Where do they sleep? Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Twins come early, so
Yeah,
it could
up to a
be.
month.
I mean, it's
It's gonna be
basically
fine.
yeah. So
What are
like,
the odds?
it's let's just chill. But yeah, like I'm. It's difficult for me to see beyond the void that is the rest of this year. I feel like about a year ago, or sorry, not a year ago. I feel like a couple years ago, back when I had Rose, I probably fell into obscurity and disappeared for a while, and I was just heads down on the game and on my family, and like my elderly parents moved up to live with us up here in Massachusetts, and there was just a lot of work around that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's probably going to be another phase here for like a year where I just go offline, um, and then I'll come back and hopefully I'll just start making puzzles again. Hopefully with Lucas. That'd be great. I've already kind of been like, hey, this didn't suck, did it? So hopefully he'll still be around in a year and he'll want to work with me on something new. I do have prototypes. I think I'll admit I haven't been thinking about it as much as I used to though. Just because I've got so much coming up that it's hard to take anything seriously right now.
That's totally fair. I think I'm just thinking about like with all of the life stuff throughout Lab Rat, what was the impetus for working with a publisher?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think there is a reality of making games and surviving in this industry, and making an income in this industry, where if you are an American, the advantage you have is that you are close to the publishers and the platforms. And you need to take advantage of that because it is also an extremely expensive country. And it's very difficult to make a living making games here unless you have the deal to be a launch title on Stadia, And so like the kinds of shit I didn't do that because it was fun. It's not like fun making crap tons of PowerPoints and aligning your game to match the product description of what these platforms want. Like fucking nobody likes making PowerPoints, right? But like getting very good at going to GDC and PAX West and Gamescom and always be touching base with the different publishers to hear what the different platforms are doing and pitching the different platforms and trying to get that money. That was a huge part of what I did at both the Molasses Flood and honestly for my own company. And that's how I've survived. And once COVID hit and I couldn't go to GDC and I, bought a house in Boston, so I'm like far away from everything. I realized that I was coasting on relationships that were probably not going to last very long. And I kind of talked to, I basically hit up a couple of private investors, and one of them was Jamie Cheng at the time, and he was a silent investor in LabRat very early on. I'm trying to remember, I think he gave me like 50 grand, and he said, "Okay, like I will invest in this." And we made up a little contract, just the two of us. And he's the president of a company called Clay. They make Don't Starve. And after a couple years, he said, "Hey, we're actually spinning up publishing here at Clay. Let's just turn this over into a Clay thing. Is that okay?" And we renegotiated that, and they became my publisher. And I think I really, really needed that. So for LabRat, the reason I'm not, destitute is because Clay got a deal with Netflix. So at launch, LabRat was supposed to come out on Netflix, and I did actually lose about a year of my life porting this fucking game to mobile, which sucked because then Netflix canceled that deal, but still had to pay us because that's how contracts work. And that's a whole conversation I can go into a different thing. But like, anyway, because of that, I had the money to hang out and make this game. And I owe Clay a lot for that. And I'm extremely grateful. I think that's honestly, people talk about the different things publishers do for you. And they say the number one thing is marketing. I think marketing is like maybe number one. Marketing / having a community built in already. That's like maybe number one, maybe number two. Because the other thing is the relationships with the platforms and the ability to get these deals, I think is really good for small, tiny teams like me and other, sub 10 person studios. And so they were great because they did that. They are also just an awesome publisher to work with. I can speak very highly of Clay. I don't remember your question. I hope that answered it, Seren.
It did. No, thank you. I'm happy that it's worked out for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dump my baggage on you. I was like, yeah, I had to work on
No.
make a fucking mobile port for a year. No, seriously though, I did. I forgot about that. That's like I've like literally already blacked that out. That was canceled in December.
Look, I'm glad that your trauma response is already kicking in over the development of this game. And I'm glad that we're getting the interview in now as opposed to in 2 years when you won't have remembered any of it.
Yeah, it's already disappearing. It's fading. It's funny.
And like, at least they paid for the game. And if they hadn't cancelled it, then probably would have been having to ship it after having more kids.
It would have been tight. I'm not gonna lie. Well, I mean, we were gonna launch. No matter what, we were gonna launch about mid-April. So we were then gonna soft launch in certain territories on mobile in April and officially launch, I think, in June. So it would have worked out. 'Cause
Possibly.
hopefully. But so no matter what, it was probably going to be about this timeline, kind of.
Are you now that you have what I'm guessing is a mostly finished mobile port, are you even considering releasing that on your own, or is it just a nah, forget that, put it back in the drawer?
We're far enough along that I really considered it. And then I looked at how much money we would make and just the amount of work just to finish off
Oh yeah,
the last little bits without a publisher. Like we have a publisher, but
without a platform deal.
Yeah, there's the money's not there. Like
No, it's
it
not.
wouldn't have even covered because I still did need to do some QA. Netflix was doing QA for us, and then without them, we don't have them doing QA, so I have to hire a QA company on mobile. And I'm like close enough to giving birth that I'm just like, I can't bring this
and
into my
it's
life.
not like Clay does a lot of mobile publishing.
No, I don't think this is their bread and butter either. They do,
especially not let's say premium bespoke experiences that have a defined end.
Well, I mean, they do have one out on Apple Arcade, if I recall, that Hot Lava game.
Yes.
Yeah, so they've got, and I think they put a couple of other ones out there on mobile. They've dabbled in consoles as well. They do launch on these different platforms, on basically every platform, but their bread and butter, I think, personally, is Steam. I would say that they really excel at Steam and in building their own audience specifically off of Steam. And I think that's something that's very smart. I think being a company that can, if you can get your audience into a Discord or into a forum or just build a community somewhere that isn't tethered to, Google or Steam, Valve, or one of these other large tech companies, if you can own your customers, that's huge.
Oh yeah. I mean, Alan and I
you own your customers.
I mean that, but we also think about like the slow decline of the mobile ecosystem every now and then. Mm-hmm. Especially for, like I was saying, games that have a bespoke start and finish.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see where that goes. I the sky is always falling, The pendulum is always swinging. I think we are definitely in a dark place in the industry generally right now.
Oh, yes.
I think you're right that standing out on mobile has become extremely difficult and that we are definitely in need of a new blue ocean. I think Netflix is at GDC looking for flagship titles for more of their streaming stuff. I was part of, there's different divisions of Netflix, and Lab Rat was supposed to be one for, they were trying to, how do I put it? In the past, Netflix had an initiative where they were trying to figure out people who like what movie, like what kind of game.
Yep.
And so they were trying to build a large catalog of a variety of different kinds of games to kind of figure out their recommendation engine. And they kind of wound that down. So Lab Rat got canceled, a ton of other games got canceled, right? But they did not wind down. And in fact, I think are spinning up their, okay, now we want to see if we can stream games. And I think they're funding streaming games.
I mean, I would hope that they're not winding it down with all the acquisitions they made. Mm-hmm. They shut down their AAA studio, but Night School and Oh, Spryfox are
Yeah.
still owned by Netflix now.
Spryfox is interesting because they're large and successful, but they feel indie. They're so distributed.
They are. I had the privilege of working with them to bring out a physical version of Cozy Grove on Switch and PS5.
Hmm.
And what an easy to work with team.
Yeah, they feel. I know a couple of people that work there here in Boston. I've met the president of the company out in Seattle. Like they definitely operate kind of like an indie company. They have kind of smaller teams on each project. They're interesting.
Yeah. Also, speaking of state of the industry, we were talking a bit before we hit record about how you've been relatively heads down, and that has encompassed news. So I just want to tell you that the state of the industry is gamers revolting at the idea of paying full price for Grand Theft Auto 6.
Okay, is this like a big thing on the internet right now?
It was like 2 months ago. People were very, very upset at the idea that Grand Theft Auto 6 might cost money.
Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine when the problems in your life are the game I love costs more than I can afford right now? I mean, I guess
Yeah,
there is other forms of entertainment. I don't know. Like I
Yeah, and all
that's
the other entertainment you basically get for free, or no, you're tricked into thinking you get it for free.
yeah. I was gonna
yeah.
say, YouTube, it's ads and data harvesting, but you can watch 100 hours of YouTube content without paying out of your wallet. You
Yeah.
don't need like if you can't afford GTA 6, I'm sorry, but also those people. Well, I was gonna say those people need to afford rent, but mostly that's for shareholders, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Let me try to put myself in the mindset of somebody that would be really, really hurt about this. I could see a world where, everything sucks and you need to escape, and your escape is this one game, whatever it is. For me, it's probably Civ. And the game came out, but it's something's wrong with it, or it's just too much money and you can't afford it, and you feel like the only thing that you use in the world to escape is beyond you and you can't have it right now. I could see that being kind of shitty. I hope they're not like death threats on the internet shitty, but like so long as they're like,
Yeah, well,
yeah, okay, so well that's not okay. But
it's gamers.
yeah,
Capital
everybody's
G, not lowercase g gamers. We like lowercase g gamers here at Drachneck and Friends,
I see.
but
I
capital G gamers.
I see. Those are the problem ones then, yeah. I
Yeah,
get it.
those are the ones that seemingly were born carrying angry mob pitchforks,
Mhm.
and you're like, I'm sorry that you love video games so much, but they don't seem to be giving you so much joy that it's improving your quality of life.
Yeah, I don't know. Grand Theft Auto's. I think it's easier for us because Grand Theft Auto is probably not our game.
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's just
I
it's just
think
easy shorthand of like biggest whichever year it's going to come out, it's going to be the biggest game of that year.
it's interesting. I remember when I was in high school and college, it was all about making fun of the COD bros. There's
Yeah,
like the kind of gamer that would sit around and like figure out shit with a spreadsheet, because like our games required figuring out shit with a spreadsheet. And then there's the
yeah.
fucking COD bros. And I feel like this is big. This is a bunch of nerds where all the nerdy, we're the real gamers, Seren. The lowercase G gamers, and those fucking COD bros are just riding over there what is it now? It's not COD. It's the Grand Theft Auto bros are over there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Fortnite,
Fortnite.
Roblox.
See, I thought of those as more kid games. God, am I getting old?
Oh, so Roblox really doesn't want you to think of it as a kid game because then they would have to face laws.
I see.
So they really want you to think of it as an adult game that's really safe to leave your children on.
Oh God, it's being a parent. This shit's horrifying too, because like
Yeah,
you navigate the spaces of parents who are like, video games are evil. What do you do for a living? And I was like, um, you know, I make puzzles.
Puzzles are good.
yeah,
Promoting thinking, critical thinking.
I have a family member who loves that I do something I love, but every time she sees me, she's just like, and now you're not working on those games with guns in them, are you? And I'm like, I shouldn't say that on record. Anyways, okay, awesome. Do you have? I mean, I'm sure you have lots of questions for us because we've known you for a while and you've known Alan for so long. But do you have any specific questions for us for the podcast?
Oh Jesus, what have you done for the last several years? No, I guess like most of my, I'm kidding, but like
That sounds like accusatory.
no, I was like, what is the industry doing now? Like, I guess let me ask a more coherent question. I guess like, yeah, how has the industry changed over the last couple years? What's a good way to put this? Specifically with like marketing and like, how do you reach your customers? Do you mostly? You guys are unique. You have your Discord. And I think you mostly work through your Discord these days, right?
Not quite. It's ever evolving. Our studio manager Mari would also be a great person to give an answer to this question. But in lieu of that, like you were talking about earlier, owning your customers is important. I think that it's hard to. It's easy to own your customer when your game doesn't get big, but the bigger your game gets, the harder it is.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, Luck Digital came out in December. That's thankfully successful to the point where there are a ton of people that are playing it that I've never heard of, which is always the sign, right? Is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's not just my friends that are playing this. Thank goodness.
Yeah, because like the Discord is great, but the Discord means that we can release a game and will all these people who we're already connected to will be excited about playing it. And if you have a Discord that has like 500,000 people in it, then great, good for you. But if your Discord is like several thousand people, that's
about 80 of which post in the Draknek and Friends channel.
Yeah, but I mean, your reach is going to be about 10x your Discord, right? Like, because your reach is those people. If they like what they played, they'll recommend it to their friends, to their family. You know, they'll post about it on
The
their
hope
Reddit.
is there. I mean, I think it also comes down to like how niche is your game. If you look, I'm just saying, speaking in hypotheticals here, if you make a game that is themed like a school subject, people are less likely to recommend it. We found.
Mm.
But
Guns, put guns in your game. People will like that, right? Like on the internet.
Every no one associates that with school.
Also, maybe like racing, cars, things like that.
Cars and
Try to
racing.
steal some of this Grand Theft Auto. Be like,
yeah.
Hey, I see you can't get your GTA. You know what's cheaper? This puzzle game about cars and guns and shit.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, why don't we make puzzle games about crime?
Yeah.
I mean, we could.
I mean, it would be.
I pitched a heist game.
You did. It would be very funny to release an M-rated game. Gwen, did we tell you this? This would have been years ago. So I think it was before you went fully ahead. Did we tell you that the original age rating of Bonfire Peaks was 18+?
Oh, why?
In Europe, because it was based on a form, like a checkbox form, right? IARC, and it was like you control a humanoid. There is a possibility that your character gets punished for failure. The punishment can include getting shot through with an arrow and red blood comes out.
Cartoon violence is different from actual violence.
It is, but the form doesn't know that. So the form said 18+, and then a human looked at it and said 7.
Yeah. We did I'm trying to remember. IARC can be fun sometimes. I went back and edited the IARC for Lab Rat recently to indicate that there was a fart joke. And that changed the rating only in Russia. From like 0 to like 6+ or something.
Yeah,
or like,
Russia and crude humor. Yep.
Yeah, they don't.
In
like
Russia, you can't let 5-year-olds find fart jokes funny.
Yeah, apparently. Who would have thought they would be the stuffy ones? That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of regions in the world where if you essentially say "damn" one time, the lowest you can get is a 12+.
Yeah, my husband and I have regular conversations on whether or not crap is a swear word. This comes up all the time, and I'm like, "That's a swear word." He's like, "No, it's not." We've gone back and forth on this.
I
Neither one.
think I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be the crap centrist here, and I'm gonna say it's not a swear word, but it's profane.
Okay, I like that. We
I,
can.
I, I think it's profanity, but I don't think that it's. I don't think that it's swearing.
Okay. Would you say it around a 3-year-old?
No,
There you go. All right.
no, because I wouldn't want to be profane. I mean, I taught middle schoolers for a couple years there, and like, let me tell you, trying your hardest not to repeat the shit that they say back to you, like back to them, is like, oh, they will say whatever they want. They have no filter in middle school. They learned a cool word on YouTube that week.
No.
And
I mean, it's probably not going to scar them for life. But the flip side of that is like, if they start using the word, "Do you want to be blamed?" That's the real risk.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to be the one where the parents are like, "Well, my teacher said it."
To get back to the original question, I think we've gotten a lot better at marketing in the last few years.
That sure was
Really?
the question.
That was the question. Okay. What how so? What have you guys been doing the last couple of years that's new?
We spent a lot of energy building up our email lists. Like email feels like a really reliable way to reach people.
Yes.
And we'll get like 50% open rates on those. And that feels like it feels impactful to, like, over the course of a year, add another 500 to 1,000 people to the mailing list. Partly we've gotten better at like thinking through, like Syrenne was mentioning, like, oh, is this a good idea? Is this a good marketable idea? Should we be making a game about chemistry, or should we be making a game about a spaceship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, your product is going to be what matters more than any marketing. Like product fit is obviously huge.
I will say, here is our life hack that we proved out through Luck Digital. If you have a demo on Next Fest, this works especially well for puzzle games, but really any video game that has distinct isolated levels. If you have a demo out for like Next Fest or Cerebral Puzzle Showcase or any of these events on Steam, gate 10% of your levels behind signing up for your email newsletter in the game.
Ooh,
If
interesting.
you get to the end of the level, say, "Thank you, we hope you enjoyed the demo. There is more if you give us your email."
Huh.
That worked so well.
That's clever. I love
People
it.
really wanted more game. And so they were really, and then, the open rates didn't change. They didn't dilute.
That is a great hack. I love it.
So everyone who's listening this far past all of the profanity can enjoy that little life hack.
No, that's a great pro tip. I love it. I think demos in general came back in a big way in the last 5 years.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
Steam like really decided they wanted people to have demos on Steam.
Yeah, as soon as like Next Fest became there, it's like, okay, this is not since the Xbox 360 have I seen people this excited about demos.
Yeah, I think honestly, I also think Next Fest was fantastic. The first couple, I think they've maybe, I've heard it's gotten like nowhere near what it once was.
It's very diluted now that there's 4 a year, and they stopped really trying to surface any games that they especially believe in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was always becoming one of those games that they especially believe in. Was always kind of like, you got to know somebody at Steam.
Oh, you gotta know somebody, and that somebody has to not just know you; they have to like you.
Yeah, like there's so much of that in this industry.
Whereas even now, like the number of people who can get better promotion because they know somebody at Steam and they really like you is like so small.
Yeah. I know, yeah. This is where publishers are becoming more and more important. Like
to be able to talk more, like honestly, it's also just like a publisher, by virtue of having a portfolio, has more reason to have consistent communication with the platform.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, they're just going to have a better relationship than you ever will as a small indie dev. I just think you kind of have to sign in with a publisher at this point to survive. That's
Well,
my.
if there are publishers that are still out there funding games.
There. I mean, the money's moving. The We're going to get new platforms soon. By the time this comes out, I think something will be announced. And
yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct will have happened 2 weeks before this episode comes out.
Okay, there you go. So you'll have that. With a new platform, there's always a new wave of interest in like funding games from the platforms. Like, these things are cyclical. Games
Yeah.
are still a growing market. Games are still a massive market. And at the end of the day, when you look at like the amount of money it takes to make a game versus the amount of money you get out of it, it is higher than some other forms of entertainment like film.
It is.
So we still, you think that, I don't know how to explain this, but like people with money who look at things in the big macro way, like the fuckers at Harvard who have like,
oh God,
who are, looking at their spreadsheets and then telling the various people who fund things where they should put their money. Venture capitalists, they swing back and forth, but they will come back to games. They always do. They usually come back to games in a weird way. Like, first they're only gonna. God, it's so ridiculous. Like, when I was in San Francisco years ago, when I was starting my career, everything was all like HTML5, and then it was we all need to be making MMOs. And then what other cycles have we gone through? We all need to be investing in the crypto games or whatever.
Yeah, Web3. Now
Web3.
It's Gen AI.
Gen AI, that fad will go. And there's always going to be a crap ton of money in that for the people who chase that. But there's also just generally an interest in trying to make more money in games. And this is just coming from a bean counters with Harvard degrees, seeing that there's opportunity here. And it seems ridiculous, but that money funnels around in weird ways. It ends up funding new platforms, it ends up in the pockets of these publishers who then put that money in the hands of the developers. Like, it funnels down eventually.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to catch up with you.
Yeah, this was fun. I'd love to do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's make a point of doing it after the twins.
Oh, it'll be a while after the twins then.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll have plenty to chat about.
I'll talk to you in a year when I've come out of the hole.
All right. Well, thank you very much again, and thank you for listening to the Drachneck and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.